4. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, and all that good stuff. This is once again C-Grimey, and I'm here with Stoveworks and Chattanooga Library for the Curious Case of Billy Long project. And I'm here with special guests Maal the Pimp, Jamal Hicks, aka Maal the Pimp, Chat-Town hip-hop legend, entrepreneur, and businessman.
Maal the Pimp, aka CEO of Pimp Holocaust, entrepreneur, executive producer, maker, rap artist, legal consultant, all the above. Yeah.
All the above, you hear me? And like I said, once again, we're here interviewing got some questions about the curious case of Billy Long. We're going over the timeline and some of the different variables and things that happened during this case. So Sheriff Billy Long, longtime deputy sheriff, ran in 2006, narrowly defeated the longtime incumbent. It was a huge upset. He becomes sheriff. Soon after, he's put under investigation by the feds, and soon after that, convicted of drug trafficking, giving guns to felons, etc., etc. Originally sentenced to 14 years. Then he took advantage of the Obama administration's recategorization of the law and got a percentage of his time shaved for the non-violent first-time offenders, and ended up getting a 10-year sentence, serving 8 and doing 2 on house arrest. And we're just here talking about, once again, the curious case of Billy Long.
Yeah, a lot of questions here.
So, with that being said, man, you're very knowledgeable on this. You are the creator of the 32 documentary, and so just tell us a little bit about what you know about the case.
I mean, I pretty much know a lot of stuff that was in the media, so I just paid close attention to it. The thing that struck me the most was, first with Billy Long being the sheriff, first and foremost. Off top, you already should be held to a high standard because your job is to keep this stuff out of the community. You know what I'm saying? So to see somebody bringing that type of work into the community and then to walk away with that small amount of time, that was a blessing. You know what I mean? So you fast forward to the 32 man guys who were caught with nothing red-handed, just alleged phone calls. If it doesn't be serving more time than him, they just don't add up. I want to just go dig into detail and just expose that and just kind of bring it to the light right there. Feel me?
And so if there's somebody that's not familiar, if they're not local, they're not familiar with the 32, tell the people what exactly is the 32 and what does that mean in full context.
32 was 32 men rounded up in November 2013. They were labeled as the worst of the worst on the news, which is defamation of character because they're not what they were labeled as. And then the bigger picture was they were all African American men. So, you know, that's racial profiling right there. And the racial profiling and defamation of character, and then the long amounts of prison time was when it wasn't warranted, you know, right there. That's what needed to be covered right there. And the name 32 comes because it was 32 men.
So November 2013, 32 black men rounded up by authorities and charged with different crimes. This is 4 or 5 years after Billy Long was tried and convicted. So fast forward after Billy Long's campaign and victory, he's charged and indicted and eventually sentenced to the time in 2009. So, and we're talking about the disparity. So, what does that look like in value of what he was charged with versus value of what the young men were charged with?
It's obvious that it was racially divided. You know what I mean? He's a person in a position of power. You know, so like I said, he should have been held to a high standard anyway. And then to get caught with the large amounts of drugs that he got caught with, like that by itself was a life sentence. Then you fast forward to these young men right here, you know, who got caught with pebbles compared to what he got caught with, and then that wasn't even red-handed. It was allegedly on the phone. And you look at these guys get more time than the sheriff. You know what I mean? Like it had to be racially motivated. Anything else doesn't make sense. It had to be.
What about him being the sheriff and these other citizens, do you think makes the disparity so big?
What makes it so big? Because the sheriff should have been held to a higher standard. You know, your job is to keep this stuff out of the community. So if you want to bring that type of stuff in, that big stuff in, these guys couldn't touch that small stuff. You follow what I'm saying? They were accused of having this much. He was caught with this much. So where are they getting it from?
So it could be directly tied in.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
That is a point that I have not yet thought of. Exactly. Wow. So he's convicted at the same time. What were some of the crimes that these young men were charged with?
All these young men, look, check this out. They was supposed to be in a roundup including drugs and guns up off the street. None of these men had violent charges. None of them. You know what I'm saying? So you had some people had some things in their background, but then you had small stuff like personal use marijuana, traffic tickets. I think somebody even had fishing without a license. You know what I'm saying? Something like that. So, you know, in general, as a whole, we're not talking about one or two, but as a whole, these guys wasn't what they were portrayed to be, you know. And then the ones that did have background, this is like the charges were over 10 to 12 years ago.
So the authorities, the court system used the background as a foundation to give them more penalties on top.
Right, that's exactly what they did. Like, for instance, like Frank White.
Okay.
When they got him, and a few more, but I'm just gonna use it for example since he spoke on the documentary. They got him to agree to take a plea deal, and then once he took the plea, they went back and said, "Oh, you've been in jail before already, so we're gonna take this and we're gonna double your time." They let him sign his agreement first, the way they had his signature, so he was stuck to that.
Wow.
Now that you sign and you say you're guilty, now we're gonna go back from these old charges that was years ago. We're gonna use that to extend this guilty plea right here.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
What was the original bargain for?
He was originally supposed to get 60 months, 5 years.
60 months would be.
So he signed for 60 months or 5 years, and then went back and said, "Oh, you've been in prison before. You had this on your record before. So we're gonna make this 128 months. It's 10 years."
Wow.
They did the same thing to a close friend of mine, Gerald Tony, which is another guy that spoke on the documentary. He had been in trouble since 2001. You know what I'm saying? He had been married, had kids and all that. He was a changed man. But they said, "Okay, you know what? You're a convicted felon from years ago, so 5 months don't apply to you. 128 months, unless you decide to cooperate."
And at the time of the roundup, none of these young men were charged. The new crimes, none of the new crimes were violent, correct?
No, none of them. None of the new crimes were violent. All these were supposedly drug phone calls, allegedly.
Just phone calls. So this is conspiracy charges.
Right, all conspiracy. Yeah.
So no actual physical evidence.
No.
None at all.
And that's what goes back to Billy Long. These were conspiracy charges saying, okay, we got them on phone calls. We assume that they're talking about drugs. Whether they are or not, we assume that. And these are small amounts that you assume they're talking about. This guy's bringing in the cartel work. He gets less time. These don't add up.
And if I'm not mistaken, another factor in these young men getting as much time as they did was the fact that many of them would not roll over on other people. They otherwise known as snitch. Right. These young men would not snitch, and so authorities therefore said we're going to be harsher because you're not going to, if you don't cooperate and tell us who's the tier above.
That's how they did my partner Gerald Tony again. They got him because they wanted the guy that he was best friends with. You know what I mean? So his best friend was who they really wanted, but you know, he was in his company a lot, so they had been seen together. So when they got him, their whole thing to him was, tell us what we want to know on him and we'll let you walk. He didn't want to cooperate. So they told him, okay, well, since you're not going to cooperate against him, we got you on a phone call where y'all talk about going to Zaxby's to have some food. Unless you cooperate, we're going to take that phone call and use the word chicken from Zaxby's as brick.
Wow.
And since he didn't cooperate, they stuck him with that.
Wow.
Imagine you meeting at Zaxby's, Crystals, or McDonald's, and then all of a sudden they want me and tell you that we're going to take that phone call. Y'all just meeting up to have genuine food and turn it into a drug transaction. You can't go to trial with the feds, so you got to take the plea.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, because
boy, throw him under the bus. Which one do you do?
If you're living by the code of the streets, you shut your mouth and you take what is given to you. Wow. And so in the case of Billy Long, he's bringing in cartel type work. He's bringing in major work, as the kids say, the plug.
Right. There you go. Right. There you go.
And so,
there you go.
so as he's bringing in hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of drugs, and I'm not sure about this specific detail, but I don't believe he was asked to cooperate.
No, and you got to think why. Like, listen, this is the sheriff. I mean, you over all the police and all the whoever else in the city. Somebody like that, you don't want him to cooperate because he's going to bring out other people in higher power if he talks. You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So you don't want him to cooperate because he's going to tell them other people like him, and it's going to expose a bunch of corruption if he starts telling where this is coming from, who's smuggling it in, who's doing this. You don't want the sheriff to cooperate because it's going to bring down half the people in the city who are in higher power. So you just let him take his time and get him out the way. You don't want him to talk because the people you're going to tell on, you already know what's going on anyway. You don't want that exposed.
Yes, sir.
So you don't need to talk.
And how do you think his experience in incarceration was? Do you think it was your average experience?
Probably was incarcerated like Martha Stewart on a golf course somewhere. You know what I'm saying? I think he got sent way west to Colorado or something like that, you know, where they probably wouldn't know who he was. He wouldn't go with the average person in Tennessee who gets fair time. You go to Kentucky, you go to West Virginia, you know what I'm saying? Some people go to South Carolina, some people might end up in Memphis or Arkansas. But what the places where you're at, if you're from Tennessee, is other Tennessee people that you're locked up with. You follow what I'm saying?
Yes.
When you go fed. They send him way out there, nobody will never know he's the sheriff. You follow what I'm saying?
Yes.
Put him in population down here with some of these guys who he's put in jail before. Let's see how smooth it go.
And they probably used that as an excuse or a reason to send him out west because to say it was for safety, but they do not hold that same standard and use that same empathy when it comes from a gang member that's from Tennessee or from Georgia that is sent to a federal penitentiary or state penitentiary in this region. They say, hey, fend for yourself. We don't care.
Right.
We don't care who knows you or if you got beef or they actually know that rival and sometimes send rival gangs to the same.
Right. Be a bigger clash and possibly a few die, which you know which is the thing of stopping reproducing in the race. So it's all a setup, man. This 32 thing is a setup. You know, it just myself and Lil Mo happen to speak on it. And honestly, you know, we at risk by doing that. You know,
Yes.
we at risk by doing that. People like to kill the message.
Yes.
Follow what I'm saying?
Yes, especially when it goes against the status
Yeah.
quo and it may bring down those in power. I myself often think about this at night and quite nervous doing these interviews and bringing this to light. And I commend you and Little Mo for your bravery, for your intelligence and your insight on this because much love to you and Little Mo for stepping out on a limb and speaking up like many activists in the city are doing. Big shouts out to Marie Mont, who, yes, that's my girl. She did an interview with us here and several others we could name. I want you to speak on now the way the media handled the roundup of the 32 versus the allegations, trial, and conviction of Billy Long.
The roundup on 32 got a lot more press, a lot more. It was like they was promoting the album for 50 cents or something. You know what I'm saying? Like it was like $1 million budget behind that. You know what I'm saying? Like the Billy Long situation with him being the sheriff, it had to make the news. They couldn't not cover that. You follow what I'm saying? They were real careful about the words they chose to describe him. You know what I'm saying? With the 32, they just let loose. Worst of the worst, killers, violent gang members. If we get these guys off the street, the crime rate is definitely going to go down in the city. We're going to make an example out of these guys. You know what I'm saying?
Which it did not.
At all. It went up. It went up. And another that goes a step further. The crime rate went up, and then these guys are in jail. There's still drugs on the street. So where is it coming from? It couldn't have been them. It couldn't have been them. They're in jail now. There's still more drugs on the street. There's still more murder going on. So what did you really solve by doing that? What did you really get across by blasting them on the news like that? By calling them out, about defaming their character. They got parents, they got children. Some of them married in church and all that. So when they see faces like this on the news and you portraying them like that, how does it make them look? And what did you really get out of that? Because you didn't stop the crime, you didn't stop the murder. You follow what I'm saying? Didn't do none of that. So what was really the whole point of that?
In your opinion, if you had to answer that question, what do you think they really did get out of it?
Nothing, but you got to think money, because this is the thing. Myself and money is what they got out of that. Myself and Joe Jenkins, City Coach Joe, he was one of the 32 men that was arrested. He's out now. You know what I'm saying? So we've been having some nice conversations since he's been out. And one of the things we basically agreed upon is, look at it like this, bro. Do they really want to stop gang violence? Do they really want to stop crime? And this is why I say look at it like this. If people stop doing crime, police don't have jobs. You follow what I'm saying? The jails, the people working in jails won't have jobs. The lawyers and public defenders won't have jobs. You follow what I'm saying? If the murder stops, funeral homes, ambulances, hospitals, all that, their money goes down. So you really don't want that to stop. You don't want that to stop because it's a money thing. It's just like not finding a cure for cancer. You know what I'm saying? It's a money thing, so they don't want it to stop. But every once in a while, you got to get a few people, put them in jail, and throw them on the news to make it look like you're an attempt to stop it. You follow what I'm saying?
So you can keep getting funding for.
Thank you. You follow what I'm saying? People need to look at all this stuff, man. A lot of people are blind. You follow me?
Yes.
Just think if everything really stopped. Just think if we really had a gang truce. We really had a gang truce. No murders, no violence, just maybe a few fist fights. Police would be out of work. The jails would be less crowded. You follow what I'm saying? Just think if the drugs were really off the street. Rehab centers, and caters, and all these people, they shut down now. You follow what I'm saying? They don't want that. Our dirty work, or the dirty work we alleged to be doing, is funding these people. They don't want to stop that. That's why they get somebody like Bill alone to bring the dope into the city, drop it off indirectly in the black community, right, and get us. You don't see that stuff out there in Ooltewah and
Well, you can curse.
You don't see that shit out there in Ooltewah, Saturdays at Red Bank. You don't see, look at this. They trying to clean drugs up off the street, right? That's what they said. How come you got all black men? Every race does drugs. Mexicans, Chinese, white, everybody do drugs. You feel me? So if you're really trying to clean drugs up off the street, you should have swept up about 700 people in that roundup. Not 32 dudes who from the east, west, and north side. You know what I'm saying?
That's a great point, sir.
People not looking at all this, man. You know what I'm saying? They didn't look at all this.
That is a great point. So out of your hard work with the 32 documentary, what, at the end of the day, hundreds of people, thousands of people have seen it so far, thousands more to come. At the end of the day, what would you like to become what impact would you like the documentary to have, and what kind of end result would you like for the city, the young men and their families who were directly impacted by this roundup, and the perception and perspective of the curious case of Billy Long? What would you like the end goal of the documentary?
The end goal, for one, is to bring awareness, because you're not going to be able to stop this type of shit from happening. But, the next time somebody gets in a situation like this, be aware of the game they're playing with you. You know what I'm saying? And hopefully we can bring awareness and make it a public thing. They won't be as quick to do this again. It's going to come again, but they might be a little more careful about it. You follow what I'm saying? And then also, the facts. A lot of these people were portrayed in the wrong way, and we need this. This documentary is not about me at all. It never was about me, but me being the one to put it together just gives it that much more credibility. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And I know a lot of these dudes. I'm from the hood. I know a lot of these dudes. And
It's the West Side.
I know that, and people know that. I'm stamped. They know that. I ain't got to say that. They know that. So I feel like I can be I have a platform. You follow what I'm saying? I'm known. I can be a voice to speak for people like this. I'll be wrong. I use my voice in all these other, fields of entertainment. So if I know I got people following me and listening to what I'm saying, why not speak up for these guys right here? You know what I'm saying? I know it was wrong. So don't just sit there and just sit down and swallow that. You know what I'm saying? And as far as the Billy Long situation, what I want the end result from that is, well, he's already did his time and got out. He's straight. But the next time somebody in power does that, nail his ass to the cross like you do us. You know what I'm saying? Nail him to the cross like you do us. Because if one of them dudes that got caught with 34, 35 bricks like he did, 22 or 23 pounds like he did, there's been 7 life sentences right there. No parole.
No parole. 7. They would have RICO'd.
Not 8 years. If I get caught with 35 bricks, I'd take 8 years with a smile on my face. Yeah, with a smile on my face. I'd take 10.
I mean, as long as that sounds, when you think about it, and all the things that can come in between 0 and 8 years, in retrospect, it seems like a blink of an eye, and that gentleman who took an oath to the county of Hamilton in Tennessee and to the citizens, the taxpayers of Hamilton County, as well as somebody who was responsible for human life and limb, who was the director of authority over the sheriff department, the chief officer of the whole county jail, as well as Silverdale. All these resources that he had access to versus what a person in poverty has access to when they're slinging drugs. That's what leads me to believe that he should definitely been held to a higher standard, no matter what position. It makes it worse that you were signed of this position, this civil servant position. On top of that, you got access to all these resources, which makes you a danger.
They should have told like he was El Chapo. You feel me? He should have got that type of time right there. Like he was El Chapo, one of them, what was Pablo Escobar type shit. He should have, John Gotti, he should have been on that type of shit. He shouldn't see daylight no more with all that. There's no way he should have saw daylight again.
Speaking of that, now that he's done his time, he's off parole, he's off house arrest, what do you think him re-entering society will look like versus one of the young men from the 32 or your average citizen re-entering after conviction in jail time?
It'll be smooth for him because you gotta think he'll still be able to get another high-paying job. They just won't let him work in law enforcement. He couldn't be a sheriff again. He couldn't be a police or nothing like that. He'll still be able to get decent work, and he's highly connected. Obviously, he had the best lawyer in town. That's what got him the deal he got. So he's obviously connected. So he's gonna have people that does favors for him. He just won't be in the public eye anymore. The way you won't be focusing on him. He's gonna have some kind of job or some kind of work that still brings him in residual income. And these guys right here, when they come home, they're gonna go through the same thing average black men in the hood go through, trying to get a decent job. Well, you got a felony on your background. Get your record expunged if you can even afford to do that. You follow what I'm saying? So when they go in front of these different jobs, that's what they're gonna run into. Felon. We don't hire felons. Your face looks familiar. Well, you one of those guys on the news, so they said, well, the worst of the worst. I'm sorry, we can't do it. Even if they might not tell them that face, that'll be the reason why. You follow what I'm saying? So if we're gonna go into the stereotype and say one of these guys come home and try to get jobs and really from the heart, if really trying to do the right thing to keep getting turned away because of their background. Technically, what usually happens then? They go back to the streets, right? So you don't frame them for the rest of their life by doing that shit. You follow what I'm saying?
Basically a scarlet letter, almost treated like a second-class citizen.
Yeah.
If somewhere we're listening and let's say they're outside of the community and they're not familiar with the plight of an African American, a black man or woman in America or throughout the world, especially in America under the administration that's currently running, what would you say to a person that, for lack of a better term, doesn't get it? What would you like for them to get from this interview and from the documentary and the facts of the case of Bill Along? What would you like them to get from this?
That racism does exist, and it's and now when people that's basically what this boils down to. Right? I'm not a racist. I've never been, but I'm not gonna sit here and act dumb like I don't know the shit is out there. You know what I'm saying? Because this is a prime example of, and anybody who don't believe that is being naive. So what you should get out of this is that racism now is being done in a different way. Nobody's not coming around calling you a nigger no more. That's too obvious right there. They do things like that, but they let the action show. These right here were a prime example of action show of racism. The white sheriff, multiple kilograms of cocaine, slap on the wrist. Black men, no drugs at all, 10 years. It just don't make sense. It just don't make sense, man. That's obvious racism. It's just not using the N word. It's obvious racism.
And in conclusion, as Mr. Harold runs by with the trash cans, in conclusion, what are some solutions, some actions that we can take from our community as black men and allies of black men and women? What can we do to just continue things like this and help the justice system kind of reverse back to what it should be?
Solution, man. Actions we can take is obviously speaking up. A lot more people doing what I'm doing. You know, just kind of always putting it in their face, letting them know that we see what the fuck y'all doing. And how much it'll help, I don't know, but at least it will keep them on edge. You know what I'm saying? That's what we can do as far as action. Solutions, laws need to change. You know, there can be something that happening within the next 100 years. Though laws need to change. Laws about how they are convicting felons. Because that's another thing that's getting a lot of our people. If you've been in trouble before, you have a felony, they use that to extend your time when it needs to be a statute of limitations on that. Say if you do have a felony, if you haven't been in trouble in 7 or 10 years, then this rule don't apply to you. There need to be some kind of law in place to prevent that. You know what I'm saying? So, because a lot of us are getting nailed to the cross. You got people who are 18 years old who got caught with a pistol maybe when they were young. They're 45 now, grown, getting in some trouble now. And you go back to that time and say you were a convicted felon, that was 25 years ago, and you use that to nail somebody to the cross? Come on, man. It's obvious that now he's not that same person. We all done been through some shit and done some shit, you know what I'm saying? We grow over time. And it seems like when it comes to the black, not just the black, but the white race too, but the black race, it affects us more. The things we do when we're younger come back to haunt us when we're older, because they're still on our record. And there's no statute of limitations, or it shouldn't apply no more. So, again, solutions is changing laws. Actions we can take is speaking up and just trying to be a voice for our community.
Nice. Thank you so much, Maal the Pimp, man.
For sure.
Once again, tell everybody where they can find you, man, what you got going on next.
Man, y'all can find me for social media, facebook.com, Maal the Pimp, aka MCP, Instagram and Twitter at Maal the Pimp. What I got coming up, my new album come out in June called Nothing But Respect. Look out for the new single called Can't Feel My Face, produced by Coop the B Man, you know what I'm saying? So that's coming in June. We're still pushing 32 documentary. 32 documentaries is available on Vimeo. I got a streaming deal with Vimeo for that. People don't know that. Yeah, streaming deal. So, ching ching, yeah. So, www.32documentaryDVD.com, that's the website. And also coming up this is my first time saying this, with my second time. Coming up at the end of the year, I'll be featuring a movie that's coming out nationwide in theaters called The Milwaukee Story, starring myself, Lil Boosie, MJG, and Starlito from out of Nashville. Y'all didn't know that. I got an acting role too. Y'all didn't know that. I'm doing a bunch of stuff, y'all. Just keep it on the low until it come out. But I go on the spill C-Grimey with that little exclusive right there. Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you, brother, man. Thank you so much for all your time, man. And thank you so much for all you're doing for the community and the entertainment world, man. Yeah, man. Thank you so much. Peace.
For sure.
Perfect.